Hey, what's up, y'all? Classic Kev back with another episode. Y'all, honestly, it's really probably the most important episode yet because on today's episode, I have January Walker, who is running for Congress of Utah. Is that right, January?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Out in Utah's fourth district.
Wow, wow. So this is again, guys, this is awesome for me to have somebody like January take the time to come on my channel. So I'm definitely super appreciative. But January, can you kind of tell my audience about your political background and about your employment background?
Yeah, absolutely. My political background is kind of interesting. So I've been a sideliner for quite some time when it comes to politics, just watching, observing, giving feedback here and there to those that take any of that feedback. But what's really valuable and what I really bring to the political arena is what I do in the private sector. So I essentially build multi-million dollar solutions for multi-million dollar problems. And this is through product management, specifically in the cybersecurity space, highlighting the digital identity space. So this is KYC, or know your customer, a banking term, the ability to do a document verification remotely, as well as self-sovereign identity, also known as blockchain identity or decentralized identity, which is the future, and gives you complete and total control over your personal information.
Yeah, that's interesting to know, January. And you're running as an independent, correct?
Yeah, so I am essentially the independent candidate. I was picked up by the independent party that's out here in Utah called the United Utah Party, which kudos for them for running a candidate on a congressional level that was really unknown in the space up until now.
Yeah, that's interesting because what I think is going to happen, we're going to have more politicians like you, and this whole blockchain and crypto become a bipartisan issue, and I think that the more younger, politicians such as yourself that have a background in cybersecurity, that it's only going to benefit the country, and this is probably an issue that both parties can kind of get behind.
Yeah, I think that what's great about technology is it's very politically agnostic. And the goal is to be advancing ourselves and advancing the people and our capabilities on that level, and not really pushing forward a certain political or factional platform.
Now, January, I went over a lot of your tweets and watched some of your interviews. So it seems to me that the biggest issues that you see this country is facing is one, the national debt, inflation, and securing our voting systems. How can this blockchain and Bitcoin technology actually be implemented to help with those issues?
Yeah, so I would definitely say inflation is a huge issue that's at the heart of not just the United States but the entire world right now, because we're all feeling it together. And when we look at the capability of what like Web3 technology will bring to the United States and other world leaders, is that it gives us full and complete transparency. So some of my proposals have been tying this Web3 technology to government spending, so you can see where all the transactions are going and say, okay, where is the waste? How do we identify that? How do we eliminate it? What are these programs that are essentially taking money away from us that we haven't been able to do a proper audit on in forever? And how do we start to cut away at that? And with this solution, as you know, in one of my tweets, I highlighted that we lost over $600 billion, and all of that would be removed and eliminated through blockchain. And that's really what I'm pushing forward on is the ability to have decentralized identities, and get some of these bureaucratic processes moving faster.
Yeah, and I agree. And, I think that, this technology can really help in those issues. But one of the main issues, I noticed that, the CPI inflation numbers came out. We're at 9.1, which is a 4 decade high. And, these same people, Jerome Powell and the Fed has told us in the past inflation was transitory. And now we're seeing, levels of inflation that's highest we've seen in 40 years. Do you see this, coming down anytime soon, or are we going to kind of be in for a rough patch?
I think that we all acknowledge that we're in for a rough patch here, and that's why we have to really lean in together, right? And work together and say, okay, what can we do to become really aggressive around how we manage our money as a nation and start to drive those pricings down. And this is a personal opinion here. This is decades of financial mismanagement, and it can be changed uh, as soon as next year, the year after, and then we can essentially cascade this message across the next couple of decades, where we reduce the inflation, we eliminate the national debt, and we just ease this economic suffering that we've been going through. Like, it's very unnecessary if we were doing things the smart way.
Do you think it's possible, the amount of debt the country has, do you think it's possible to eliminate this debt?
Yes, absolutely. We can 100% eliminate the national debt. I mean, I could see having, like, a few million or whatever, because I understand that we have bonds and everything in that way, but there's no reason for us to have $31 trillion.
Agree.
We can eliminate that over the next 2 to 3 decades. And as we look through my plans, my proposals, I mean, we've already shaved off, I think it's just by tweaking a few programs, tweaking a few pieces of legislation. It's already like 460 some odd billion just with those programs. So there's options here, and that's what we really need to be exploring. And so whether or not I get elected, I'm happy to work with these leaders and show them this technology and help bring it forward. But they have to stop making it a political issue.
Oh, and I agree. And I think that what I've seen personally is a lot more, politicians in Congress, like Ted Cruz has been a proponent of bit. He's been pro crypto and Bitcoin. And I think when people realize, not just with Bitcoin, this idea of money that is not political, money that can't be used as a political weapon, and also money that can't be ruined by inflation. So this is kind of a new concept that we as a society are having to experience, because this country is based on a debt-based system. So if you're in a debt-based economy, a national debt is going to be normal. But in order to reverse that, I think is going to be a little challenging.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worth having that isn't a challenge to get there.
Mm.
So I agree it's going to be a challenge, but it's not impossible. Like, if you listen to a lot of people, they say, "Oh, it's impossible to reverse this." It's like, no, you've just lost hope.
I agree. So now let's get back into our voting system. So could you kind of describe to me, in a perfect world, a blockchain based voting system that could be implemented, let's say in the next like 5 to 10 years, realistically, what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things around this that I want to lay the land on first is that from a political standpoint, right, from a leadership aspect, my goal is to go in and sponsor legislation that creates a framework of trust around the voting system and how we could do blockchain voting. So I wouldn't be picking which blockchain gets used like that. That's a free market exercise, right? But in terms of how it could look in the future and how it could benefit us, you essentially have the ability uh, to, from your phone. So, like, I'll take you through the customer experience side of this. So you would have your phone or your device, and you would have your identity tied to it, first of all. So this is where the decentralized identities come in, where you hold all of your information and nobody can access that. So you could keep in there your education credentials, your work history, your license, your health history, whatever. But and especially voter like registration, essentially saying that you are able to vote. And this could be something that honestly we should probably just issue to anybody that's over the age of 18 that's legally allowed to vote, instead of making them go through this extra friction process that costs us a lot of money and time and effort and operations. But you can have that all in your wallet that you take with you. And then when election time comes around, you receive your ballot. And from there, you would have your candidates listed. In my mind, if we were going to take it one step further, features that I would like to see is the ability to click into that candidate, go to their website, see what their positions are, be able to read about them and give you that material easily on hand, I think would be incredibly helpful. And so you can go through, you can say, okay, here are the candidates that I want. And then once you select that, you cast your ballot. And with this Web3 blockchain technology, it's 100% immutable. Once you cast that ballot, there's no somebody changing it or hacking or anything like that. People that say that they're really not being productive to the conversation. They're expressing fear and concern, right? It's not so when we move beyond that, they cast that, and there's a way that we can apply double encryption technology, and there's other pieces of technology that do this, but in my mind it would be double encryption. And so it protects the identity of the person that cast the ballot. And the reason I think that that's important is because people do have a right to personal privacy. We don't always need to see who voted for who. All that we need to know is that that individual was a real individual that was legally allowed to vote, and the little tally mark to put next to what candidate's name. And then once you have that, you can easily go back and audit it. You can see in real time the results of who's winning, instead of this how do I put this? Instead of this grouping of, oh, we counted this batch, so now we're uploading this batch. And then there's no room for human error where if you miskey a number, people aren't like, oh, what just happened there? No, that's not what it is. It's just it's this very simplistic flow that you can watch in real time, and then you would know immediately who won the election. So if you're around the world or you're deployed, like if you're in the military, this is going to be huge. Or say you're disabled, you don't have access. I mean, the ability and the functionality is huge. And then as far as when can we start using this, Utah in 2020, we used this during our presidential elections. Not quite with the identity piece, but definitely with the blockchain voting piece. And so within the next 2, 4, 6 years for sure, we will have blockchain voting. And anybody that's pushing us to go back is not being helpful.
Oh, no, I agree. And I think that it's a hard concept for people to understand that, you can have these voting systems where people can vote from their phone, from, like you said, anywhere in the world. And it's literally the most secure network in way of actually doing it. And it seems to me that there is a lot of friction, whether it's Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and a lot of the friction is coming from like politicians, and it's coming from the central banks. And a lot of the friction, seems to be, maybe not always evil intent. It's more or less ignorance of new technology, similar to when the internet first came out. There was, people like where I live in New Orleans, I know somebody that actually pitched the idea of the internet to the former mayor of New Orleans. And they were like, oh, we don't need a website for the city of New Orleans. So it's interesting that you bring that up. So are we witnessing kind of with Web3 the same thing we went through at Web2?
Yeah, absolutely. We are experiencing this same like just resistance to those that might be late adopters, right? So you have your early adopters, and then you have your late adopters, and we're definitely at the forefront. And being able to clearly speak to the value and show the value in everyday scenarios will have a huge amount of appeal. And it's also going to take from the community a lot of openness and compassion, and also um, being, I don't want to say, I know a lot of people cannot be agnostic in what they like to champion, but trying to be as agnostic as possible, and instead of trying to sell a product, sell a solution. And the
Mhm.
solution is not always the product.
Yeah. And so what I think I noticed is that a lot of people are having a hard time grasping the concept of like the future being decentralized. We are so used to, if we want to access the internet, it has to go through these centralized Web2 entities, whether it be Facebook, Amazon, Google. And this idea that all of our data, everything about you, everything about me is literally stored on a centralized server. And it doesn't matter if that's the most secure server in the world, that data is in one place. And I don't think that any institution, government, or corporation should know that much about you or me. And I think that that is what people are going to realize. Really, what's most important about this is that the future will be decentralized. That, you know, the Amazons of the future won't be owned by anybody. There won't be a CEO. There won't be a board of directors. It'll be us. And that's the beauty of what this brings. And I think that we are at the beginning of that, digital technology revolution.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting what you say that there won't be stuff like an Amazon or a CEO. Uh, I think that maybe you might be an expert more in that than even I am, because or maybe I wouldn't say, I would say futuristic thinker. How does that sound?
Yeah. So I guess what I mean by that is that, the technology, used to create an Amazon, so you have, say Jeff Bezos,
Right.
with his massive net, not saying anything bad about Jeff Bezos, but his amassed all this net worth, and that's through a centralized entity. Well, with the technology we currently have, we can make a decentralized Amazon today. Like there's nothing stopping that besides the Web2 entities, whether it be Facebook, Amazon, that's getting in the way. And I think, a decentralized social media would be amazing, because what we've seen
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
past.
No, I do agree on that piece. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, and what we see is before is, Facebook, choosing sides on political issues, and whether you agree with the issues or not, this idea that we should not be subjected to the arbiters of truth. And I think that that's what decentralized brings. And what I want people to really think about is, no matter what issue you're pro or against, that if these institutions can silence the people who oppose you, they can silence you. It's just a matter of time. So I think that that's the one thing I want people to try to take from this, is that the future will be decentralized, and that some type of way, a digital currency will be implemented into our society. And it's going to be for the benefit of the people, actually.
Yeah, I do agree that this technology and what's happening will be of benefit for the people. And um, I want to kind of explore for a moment, if we can, the aspect of personal privacy when it comes to these companies as well. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. So when we look at concerns around these centralized conglomerates having our information, you mentioned one of them around freedom of speech. Some people may prioritize that higher on their list than others, and some may say, "Hey, like I want personal privacy, or I want to, know where my data is going, or whatever it is." And I think that that is the heart and the crux of this issue for me, is that they are collecting data on us, data that we don't even realize that they're collecting. And my big one that I've been concerned around, because I tried to go find it and I couldn't, but that was in terms of behavioral biometrics. So that is how you walk, how you talk, how you type, how you hold your phone. Like, your interaction with technology essentially has a digital footprint that's beyond just what you put into it. And these companies have been collecting this information on us for a really long time, at least for sure the last 5, 6 years that I've been able to track. And with that, they sell this information, and it kind of goes into this nothingness. It was very hard to find where this was ending in, but we have seen some companies pop up, like the one that sold MasterCard like 100 million records of people's behavioral biometric data, which is like, holy cow, that's a lot. And then I've talked with other companies where they can tell you pretty much who you are, how many people you have in your home. They know you probably more intimately, or recognize more intimately who you are than you recognize yourself. So this is people, your likes, your preferences, everything. And you don't even have to be a customer of these companies. And so I think that that takes it one step further, because, over here you agreed, yes, you may hold my data, but then all of a sudden it's getting out. And when we look at these centralized entities, that's really what we need to branch off of, is giving this control back to the people. And I think that there are many use cases for this. Like I've talked about personal health information. We've talked about, of course, like how you interact with the web, your marketing data, all of that, you should own it.
Yeah, and there's an old saying, if something's free, like these apps, then you are the product. And that's how a lot of these, whether it be Facebook, Amazon, they make a lot of money on acquiring customers' data. And what they're doing is using artificial intelligence, that's all the recommend it for you Amazon section. Or I think we've all kind of experienced something, you're talking about a food or wanting to go fishing or something, then all of a sudden, you have an ad on your phone for that product or service. And it
Well, it's almost like
really,
you're thinking about it. You don't even say it, you just think about it.
yeah, and it's concerning too, because as we, people are starting to care more about their digital identity. People are spending more time online. People were doing interviews like this. People are exposing more of themselves through the social media platforms. And I just think as a society, we need to be very, very concerned at where this is going. And that if we're not careful, I don't want any, whether it be, I don't care what their intent is. I don't want Facebook, Amazon, or Google knowing literally everything about me, from what I like, what politicians I voted for, what products or services I endorse. I just don't think that that is the route we need to go. Now, I want to talk about more about Bitcoin, because what I'm seeing out of, it's very positive, out of whether it be, Congress or, the federal government. It seems that they are becoming more and more pro Bitcoin. And what the hurdle we had to get over in the past was, is this technology going to become illegal? Is the government going to ban Bitcoin? So what do you think about that? Are we kind of at a point where, crypto is being integrated into our society?
Yeah, I think I think that crypto is being integrated into society. Like, for example, it's being integrated into this campaign. Like, how many politicians do you think accept like crypto from this aspect? Like, do you know any other ones that are actually saying, yeah, we do this?
I'm sure there are, but I haven't personally seen it. But I would think that with these next couple elections coming up, that every politician will have some type of address to send Bitcoin or Ethereum. I mean, I think what people witnessed firsthand was, if you look at, the conflict in Ukraine, and people were sending millions in crypto donations to the citizens of Ukraine. That wasn't possible before. That's not possible to send millions of dollars instantaneously with no middleman. That wasn't possible before. Bitcoin makes that possible.
Yeah, so I definitely agree on that side. And to answer perhaps the other half of your question, I think that yes, government will start to adopt it, but I do not think that it will be without advocates in there. And I don't think we have enough advocates, because the advocates right now, personal opinion, they see it more um, as taxable income than they do see it as innovation or something that needs to have a framework of trust put around it so that people can be protected and not have their money or their life savings stolen. And so I think that the approach that's happening right now is from government is incorrect.
Yeah, I agree. So the regulation, it seems to be coming out, that what Bitcoin is, to me, Bitcoin is an asset, similar to a bar of gold or real estate. And understanding that legislation is needed if you want, investors, and whether it be hedge funds or pension funds, to integrate these assets into their portfolio. There needs to be framework. And it seems that our government, most of them, unfortunately, they don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about it, but they're dictating policy based off of, I don't know what. I don't know where they're getting this information from. But there's people like you, which gives me hope. Like you said, that, for your campaign, if you just bring, light that we can have a voting system. I didn't know that about Utah. I didn't know Utah has implemented blockchain technology in a voting system, because I think that's something everybody can agree on, that our voting systems are very archaic. The way we take votes, whether you think elections are secure or not, it's an archaic system that needs to be updated. I mean, we have the technology, like you said, to the day of the presidential election, we'll know who won. It's that, and it's a trustless system. There is no middleman. There is no middleman. It's beautiful what the technology can do.
I definitely agree with you on that. And I thought it was very incredible that because Utah is becoming a tech central capital of the world. So we have a lot of amazing things out here, but they call us now Silicon Slopes. instead of just Silicon Valley. So, and that's right in my backyard.
Yeah, so let's talk about so the dollar is unfortunately, it's one of the weaker dollars. And I feel very bad for the younger generations, because inflation is the silent thief. And what we are seeing is, as the dollar weakens internationally, people turning to alternative currencies like Bitcoin and crypto. So I guess what I would want to see is some type of way, our government implement crypto into our society, meaning that the dollar, maybe, because a central bank digital currency, Jerome Powell said, is coming. A central bank digital currency is coming. So what I'm hoping that we can do is maybe back the dollar by Bitcoin. Do you think that is something that could happen? We used to be on a gold standard, and a lot of advocates of Bitcoin have talked about a Bitcoin standard, where we back the dollar, where our dollar will have backing, which will make it stronger internationally. Do you think that is possible?
I think that is a fascinating idea that I would probably have to think on it more and research implications and things like that
Mm-hmm.
before saying yes, this is the way that it's going to move forward. I mean, personally, I am always rooting for the United States, so maybe a little bit of bias there towards the great old U.S. of A. And I hope that they can continue to pull through this, but uh, I think it'll be I think there will be some interesting things happening in the future.
Yeah, and that's what I've talked about a lot on this channel. Hey, look, if you fix the money, you can fix the world. So while we're seeing, the CPI numbers come out at 9.1, that's really misleading, because go to the grocery store. It's not 9.1 inflation increase. Go to the gas pumps. It's not a 9.1 inflation increase. And what you're seeing is countries around the world having hyperinflation. So it's really not fair that the dollar's strength, and look, I want the dollar to be the world reserve currency, but without it being backed by something such as gold or Bitcoin, it's unfortunate that the route that we're going, it won't be the world reserve currency. And that's kind of what I fear.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people that are worried that the United States would lose its world ranking, just because of our political unrest, because of our financial unrest, because of our financial mismanagement, because of the people that are leading our country currently. I don't think that that's a stretch to say. And I think that that's what we're really trying to change here is if we bring civility back to government, if we bring knowledge and know-how and thoughtfulness and solutions, that everything that you've mentioned, both the good and the bad will be uh, addressed.
What are your thoughts on central bank digital currencies? Because those have something that have been talked about for a while. They're being implemented in other countries now. And now Jerome Powell has come out and said that the United States is in the testing process of a central bank digital currency. Do you have any concerns on what could happen with this?
I know a lot of people have a lot of concerns, but when we look at all the solutions that have been proposed, where we are now, where we're going in the future, even looking at cryptocurrencies and that type of thing, we know that there's always going to be a concern. But I think personally that we can all just live and collaborate together, right? Just because there's other solutions out there doesn't mean that it invalidates what you bring to the table, and it doesn't invalidate what they bring to the table. So I know that that's not as strong of an opinion as I've seen many people request, but that is what it is. And I personally cannot go into office giving preferential treatment to anything, because how will I ever get done what needs to get done if I'm fighting this tribalistic battle?
Oh no, I agree, and I do think that there is a place in our country for a central bank digital currency. I just want it to be alongside the alternatives, if that makes sense, because I don't want to live in a world that money is politicized. So, whether it be, if you look at what happened in Canada with the truckers, and no matter what side of that issue you're on, I do not think the government should have the unilateral power to turn off your money, to freeze your bank account. And what people would disagree with that, and what I would strongly suggest you look into is look at what happened with the uprising in Afghanistan, right? Where innocent civilians had to flee their country. So what do you think happens to their money when they flee their country and their country gets taken over? What do you think happens to their banks? That is the politicization of money. What Bitcoin offers is the life raft out, meaning that if you're in a country that had, say, like Venezuela, which is dealing with hyperinflation, Bitcoin is the life raft out. We've finally created a system that is equal for all, a currency that can't be inflated, a currency that doesn't have a CEO, a currency that has no government ties, and it's money that is by default not political. By default, our current money is political. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, the money can be used against you. So I don't know how.
Really interesting. Do you see truly a difference between fiat or crypto when it comes to politicization of money? Because when I look at it, I see both as means to political uses. Like you see people, specifically like large corporations. There was a report that said a lot of, sorry, I just had this sent over to me, but essentially a lot of major groups sent money to their government, right?
Mhm.
And government officials to try and continue to obtain favor to have pro crypto legislation in their favor, right? So not just within Bitcoin or Ethereum, but outside of that.
So, so what are you saying, that money, that we could be using this money to influence politicians? Is that, like, as far as like
Well,
campaign
I'm saying that
donation?
we
Mhm.
are, right? So the honestly, the way I personally don't think that money should be in politics at all, but I understand after, almost 2 years, I've accepted that you need to have money to reach people. But these people, why, I know how much it costs to run a campaign. So, why do you need like $5 million to run this campaign in your state if you're the size of us? Like, what are you doing with that money? So
I understand what you're saying, and what, January, what I'd want you to think about is what exactly money is. All money is your labor stored, your time and your labor stored. So, now again, guys, I stand by the theory of let's elect better politicians. And so whether I want to send January Walker a $1,000 or $10,000 campaign donation in Bitcoin.
2,900.
Well, yeah. So
Oh, yeah, 2,900 is the max.
yeah. So whether I want to send you a campaign donation, what is the difference that if I come and volunteer on your campaign and say go door to door endorsing you and promoting you? Like, what is the difference? So I don't think that money, again, should be politicized. So again, guys, if people want to donate to politicians, as long as it's transparent and auditable, I have no issue with it. I have no issue with it. Now, again, what you said, that, people sending millions of dollars for a local election. Yes, that does raise some eyebrows. But again, I would stress, let's elect better politicians. If I were running for office and, insert a bad actor wanted to donate money to my campaign, and they wanted a political favor from me, they wouldn't get it. You see what I'm saying? Because I want that's the platform I would advocate, of just being open and transparent.
Yeah, I really admire that and appreciate that, honestly, because we find so many that don't. And I just want to share like a quick personal thought around this, or an observation. I've seen people that say they're not influenceable by money within the political sphere, but then, when they talk with me and, I try and talk with them, it's very clear that they are being
Mm-hmm.
influenced. And I think that that's really what we need to be exposing, is who are those people that are secretly corruptible, and not just those that just say whatever, this is who I am privately and publicly.
Yeah, and we see it with different lobbyist groups and different organizations that support politicians, and they always find way. Like for example, what they'll do is they'll push legislation in their favor, and then they'll go do a speech, and they'll get paid 10 times what the normal rate is to give that speech. So we are seeing that, and again, guys, that's what this technology offers: the ability where politicians can do that, but it's going to be transparent and auditable, where you won't need a CPA or forensic audit to catch these kind of people. It'll be a public ledger where somebody like me or you watching can just go and look at the real-time data and say, oh, wow. Oh, so they got all this money from big pharma, or they got, all this money from insert corporation, and now they're pushing legislation in their favor. So at least what the technology will be is let's put it all in open. That's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. So, and I really like the utilization of Web3 for that reason.
Now, another thing, I was looking at your platform. Another thing, me and you obviously both agree on is term limits. So, what's kind of your take on what we're seeing right now with term limits, and why do you think our founding fathers, like, why do you think that we didn't have term limits? Like, why wasn't that, for everything amazing our founding fathers did? It seems like this is one they kind of missed the mark on a little bit. Why do you think that is?
I don't think that they really thought people would be in government as long as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that they had a great amount of trust within the system that it would operate and function, and that there would be
Well,
that I think that they forgot that government can become corrupted, or people can become corrupted.
I don't think, guys, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't think when the founding father, wrote up the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, I don't think that people lived to be, 100 years old, 90 years old. So
Right.
maybe that was part of it. Again, I'm not sure. So
I mean, I didn't want to say it in person, but you said it, so there we have it.
Yeah, so term limits are definitely something I want to see. And in January, before we end this interview, I do want to ask you, what are your thoughts on NFTs?
I really personally think that NFTs are cool. They have a lot of applicable value. We are going to start seeing them more in the future. And I want to share with you one of the things that we're trying to do right now with our personal platform to show the utility around these technologies. So we have been working with a few groups to actually try and get some NFTs in place where there's going to be a set where you can attend events and get swag and everything like that based on your supporter level. And each coin will increase in rarity as we go up. And then we are also going to make it so that within the platform, on the 12 platform items that we have, you can purchase one of these NFTs and vote with your dollars as to what issue you would like to see focused on first when I get into office. That way, it's not me setting my priority and saying, here's what I'm going to do. And what if, what I'm going to do is separate from what the people actually want. But with these solutions, I think it'll be really awesome because one, it does allow people a say in what happens, and it helps power this campaign and get donations directly into the district where we need it.
That's awesome that you're implementing that. And I think that, within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see, not just politicians, but, athletes and celebrities all launch an NFT, because it really is a way, I'm part of a lot of green NFTs, NFTs that actually help the planet. And the amount of money that is able to be raised for charitable causes, or again, everybody has their own cause. Some people, no matter what it is, and this technology is really, really helping, not just, our country. This technology is going to help the world, because what it does is it brings together, whether it's like-minded people who stand behind the same cause, but the ability to raise money like we have never seen before. Like this is a new concept. Web3 is a completely new concept for society. And this is the beginning. You know, when they write the history books and they talk about society, they're going to talk about us going into this digital age, and it's going to be, you know, at the infancy, these NFTs. So these little pictures you see of monkeys and frogs, you know, like in the history books, people are going to look at that and be like, you know, looking at, you know, prehistoric, you know, caveman drawings. That's how important this technology is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think what we're seeing right now is just the beginning. We haven't even explored the full concepts around this. So I'm really excited to be helping the community in that way and saying, or not in just in saying, but in showing the value of what we're doing here and how it can be integrated and bringing more people into the space. Because once you have more people and you build more trust and you have that framework put in, then you have technology that can really take off. So I'm very excited for that.
In January, again, thank you for the time for coming on the show. And guys, look, this isn't an endorsement of January. I live in Louisiana. She's in Utah. You know, I just thought it was cool to bring somebody like her on because, you know, your future politicians, they're going to be pro Web3. They're going to be pro blockchain, or they will not be elected. I'm telling you right now, you know, this is the moment in history that the people actually move the country forward, that the people stop putting the trust in corporations or, you know, politicians on single issue politicians. And that this is going to be a platform that I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, every single politician will be, you know, a bipartisan issue. But January, is there anything else you'd like to add?
So yeah, first I do want to thank you again for having me on. It's really valuable when you experience media blackouts for individuals like yourself to say, actually, there is value in having these conversations and to spread it to the world. And so, you know, I hope that you're continuing, or sorry, your following continues to grow. And as far as like just some values that are really near and dear to my heart when it comes to politics is that our elected officials should be 100% for the people. It's we the people, not we the party. And at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We have to work together. This is the time for the United States to show up to the table and actually lead like the other countries expect them to. When I travel around the world, as you can see with my map, I have a lot of pins in there. When I talk to these people, that's what they say. They're waiting for us and wanting us to step up and be the leaders that we know that they know that we can be. And they haven't lost hope in us. And so that is really what I'm trying to drive forward. And I hope that you'll all join me in that. And I just want to again thank you so much. This is the future, and we're going to be doing some amazing things together.
Well, best of luck in election January. I'll definitely keep in touch with you throughout. And guys, you know, it's one thing you take from this interview. The future is decentralized. And guys, I will have all of January's links in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Classic Kev. This is January Walker. I'm out, y'all. Peace.